This is our first February. There'll be 2 Februaries on sport, so there'll be the chance to build the momentum, hopefully, so that by the end of the 2 years, our hope is that we have raised the bar of the awareness of sports clubs, both professional and amateur, of the existence of lesbian and gay, bisexual and trans people, get the government to think more effectively about it. We will, of course, finally, April 11, have the public duty, which will include gender orientation, gender identity and sexual orientation. So we're hoping that will have an effect as well, to add impetus to people to start thinking about how can they be inclusive of the diversity of the lesbian and gay, bisexual, trans community as participants, as watchers, and that we can be safe and visible both as participants in sport and as watchers of sport. And it's going to be a slow process, but I'm hoping that LGBT History Month can open the door, and with the number of organisations and people who have grabbed this month with some fascinating ideas, it can do nothing but build the impetus, and hopefully, it'll make a difference.
Over the past 7 years, LGBT History Month has ensured the lives of its members are acknowledged, their contribution to society isn't lost, and those outside of the community have a better understanding of what it's like to be lesbian, gay, bisexual or trans. This year's theme of tackling homophobia in sport is a chance for us to look at how to improve things for future generations. Love it or loathe it, everyone remembers sport at school. The impact on our confidence is long-lasting, whether it's positive or negative.
I think it kind of confirmed a few things in my head, because being around loads of boys and kind of thinking, oh, okay, yeah, maybe I've got different feelings to my other friends, but nothing sexual or anything like that. Just kind of thinking, something's maybe I'm a bit different to other people. But I think the pressure that you kind of get from the type of school that I went to in terms of sport, kind of a bit like they expect you to do this, they expect you to be on the team. If you're over a certain height, if you're a certain way, there's always an expectation there.
I was quite lucky. I think I went to sport as a lesbian because, essentially all the other girls in high school spent all their time kind of talking about boys. So I was in charge of sport shed and I played sport, and I think that's where I went to. It was something that just made me equal. We're all playing the same game, we're all trying to get the next person out. All that sort of stuff. It didn't matter gay or straight.
I was into sports, played sports all throughout school, some from football, rugby, basketball. I was always doing something at school. I was quite active in that respect, and I loved it. Yeah, I did have that sort of element of fear of telling my friends about my sexuality. It's always quite a hard thing, especially growing up in a small town. Everyone knows each other. It's very hard to come out. I'd known friends who had come out and they did get bullied and they did have a hard time with it, so I found myself holding back on that till I felt comfortable.
School was bad for anyone. I think it's so you're so self-conscious. Everyone's growing up, everyone's got hormones, but I think, and you can kind of think sport is the enemy. But when you do have, when you can kind of get results from sport when you're running, and you can see your body changing, and you do feel good after doing whatever activity. You can know that it is a force for good as opposed to a force for bad.
Schools are one thing, but imagine it's your job. You're good enough to play for your country in front of millions of people, and yet you don't feel able to show them who you really are. Over the last few years, sporting organisations have tried to be proactive with diversity departments and strategies to deal with homophobia in sport. The Olympics have launched a pride pin and stated, "Our diversity board and all our colleagues are committed to making this the most diverse and inclusive games possible," while the RFU stated their code of rugby conduct encourages all participants to treat others with respect. It takes the issue of homophobia very seriously and will act quickly and decisively to any incidents or concerns reported. The FA have yet to respond. And while having diversity departments is a step in the right direction, is it too little too late? Presenters, musicians, politicians are all allowed to be gay, so why not our sports stars? I went to White City to visit sports journalist Mark Chapman and asked him, why is sport so far behind?
I think sport in general still has a lot to do. It lags behind virtually every other aspect of our lives in how it deals with homosexuality. I think some sports deal with it better than others. I think rugby union and rugby league barely batted an eyelid when Gareth Thomas came out. But the main problem really, when you look at it, is football, because it doesn't seem to know how it would deal with a footballer coming out. It doesn't seem to be a society in which a footballer would be able to come out in. I think that's a better way of putting it.
So do you think it's down to the organisations or the fans? What's the problem?
I think the fans are always used as a very easy target as far as everybody else is concerned about why a footballer doesn't come out. But if you talk to a sportsman, if you talk to a footballer, or even Gareth Thomas told me this as well, they are used to getting stick from fans, okay? They are used to getting abuse from fans, because that is part and parcel of being a sportsman in this country, certainly in a team sport like rugby or like football. So, and also the fans that I have spoken to wouldn't care whatever their players do in their private lives as long as they produce on the pitch, you know? So the fans are quite an easy sort of stick to beat the game with. Oh, the fans wouldn't allow it. I don't think that's true. I don't think the authorities really know how to create a society within their sport which allows a player to come out. I think that's the main thing. And also, the media would make whoever is the footballer who comes out would make their life hell, because they would be doorstepped by telly and papers and radio, and they would have their private life poured over by the newspapers in particular, and it would be very difficult for them.
So what do you think could be done to temper that?
Needs to get to a stage with our sportsmen where we're not interested in the salacious tittle-tattle, you know? If you go back 20 years with a lot of politicians, you know, when they were being found, you know, in stockings and suspenders with oranges stuffed in their mouths, you know, we were like obsessed with their private life. Now you get a politician or a minister who comes out and people barely bat an eyelid. And we need to get to that stage with football. You know, this is the thing. I'm not going, we need every footballer who's gay to come out publicly. I wouldn't ever want that at all. But what I've always said through all of this is, it would be great for football to have the kind of society where it would enable a player to come out publicly if they wanted to and not have to live a lie.
So while football and the media still have some way to go, we should be encouraged by the attitude of our wider society.
Each year we have an annual gathering, and in the mid-1980s we'd booked a village hall in Wales, and when they found out who we were, they cancelled the booking. But things have moved on a lot since then. I mean, that was in the 1980s. Now, last year we went up to a small village in Scotland, and we also had a village hall, and well, we almost took over the whole village. There were so many of us, and we were given a wonderful reception.
Perhaps in the past, something like women's football would have been considered like a gay women's sport, and was therefore kind of ridiculed a lot. And I think because attitudes towards gay women have changed a bit as well, kind of more women go into football, for instance, and it's just become a more acceptable sport for everyone.
I've got a nephew who is 18 years of age, and I think he's known that since about 14, 15, without me directly telling him, or even younger, he's known that I'm gay. And to him, it's like cool uncle. It's like a cool thing. And then when you kind of see his group of friends and see who he's socialising with, they couldn't give a damn. They've got gay friends amongst them, and it's nice to see. Actually, I think it's got a more accepted now, a lot easier, which is great for people to be themselves. But yes, I think definitely it's easier now.
In rugby, especially in the last 2 years, we have Gareth Thomas, who came out as the first openly professional gay rugby player, which is awesome. And I mean, he seems like a genuinely kind of nice guy, and he's quite eloquent, so which is good. You know, you don't have this person that doesn't know how to speak properly or kind of reference in proper ways. I mean, he's a good spokesperson for the cause in a sense. So. I mean, it's been really great to see the support and rather the outpouring of support from people all over the world. I mean, he was on Ellen, he's been on some of the late night talk shows and like Oprah over in the States, and And everybody seems really supportive, and it's really great for kids that are in the closet, maybe younger, to say, hey, I can still play rugby, even if, you know, my mates are making jokes and stuff like that. You know, at the end of the day, I can stay true to myself and still play the sport that I love.